Ideal Healthcare, we do herbal and nutrition based cures in Tanzania. We have our offices in Moshi. We also have an office in Arusha and Mwanza. We do training to farmers on crops like amaranth, the sweet potato, these nutritious. These we would call them new crops, not necessarily maize, although we do a bit of the yellow maize because of the vitamin A content. So we are looking for substitutes for crops other than the traditional food, crops that are more nutritious than maize. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said, can we go to number 1? I think if the introduction was not adequate, we can read through, but I'm a founding director of Ideal Healthcare. And I said I'm a businessman, I'm a teacher, I'm a trainer, and also I am a health coach. And we have been doing this now for more than 30 years, so we have a lot of experience in this. And we have, when we were going around Tanzania, we discovered that we have many people with deficiencies, especially in vitamin A, and some with vitamin C, minerals like calcium, and so we were looking for alternatives when we came across Amaranth and Moringa. And we saw that one way of ending these deficiencies is by teaching farmers to grow. I know most of the organizations here are into teaching, and we supplement each other. We have done many seminars in the country teaching the farming methods. And for the sweet potatoes, the orange fresh sweet potatoes, we operate our herbal clinics in Moshi. We have one in Dar es Salaam, Mwanza. We also have a unit in Mbeya and Mwanza. And through these units, we are able to reach many people. At Ideal Healthcare, we bring balance in the human body. What we really do is to balance the human body. There are deficiencies in the body. And there are also those things that we don't need, the excess. Like you could have an excess like in cholesterol. And these are the substances that will cause toxins in the body. So when we bring a balance in the body will heal itself naturally. And this is what we have been doing now for about 10 years now. And we have been successful in treating cases. I think on page 4, we have some cases that we've used amaranth on. And there's especially one lady who we treated, and the lady did not have any money, so we just gave her Amaranth. And the lady she had a stroke, and she had already, she was about 5 days with a stroke. And she used Amaranth for about 2 weeks. And she came back, and I could not recognize her because she had already gone back to her old self. So we have been using food, and we also have cases. We have cases of 2 men and businessmen in Moshi we have also done Amaranth on them, but these ones we mixed Amaranth with other food, and the stroke went out. So we thank God for the Amaranth seed. So we have used Amaranth exhaustively, but in most cases we use it in combination with other food. We have not used it as Amaranth alone, but in Dar es Salaam also we treated a child, and the child was booked for operation, and the doctors had to cancel the operation because after 10 days, the child was booked for an operation, and there was a 20-day gap, and the child recovered, and the operation was canceled. I would say that one disadvantage with what we have been doing is we have not been recording our cases so that we can have scientific evidence. But to us, that does not matter very much, because if you have food and you can treat yourself even in the village and you can avoid going to hospital, I think that to us would be very good. So we have also a case of a child who was born at Haydom Hospital in Manyara, and the doctor said the child cannot survive, and if the child survives, then the child will not grow. They'll be retarded, and the doctor used the word, the Swahili word zezeta. And the mother came to us, and we gave her Amaranth plus Moringa, and the child now is walking. The child now is about 1.5 years, and the child is okay. So we thank God to the tiny Amaranth seeds. They would look tiny, but I think they are great. Poverty and food insecurity is widespread in developing countries. More than 1.2 billion people in Africa, Asia, Latin America live in absolute poverty, subsisting on less than $1 a day. And 2 million people are deficient in one or more micronutrients. That was a study done by Azam, Ali, and Batok in 2001. The cases have not changed much from then. Of the regions of the world, poverty is most impeccable in Africa, where half of its population, of about 1.3 billion people, lives on less than $1 a day. There is therefore need for governments to incorporate Amaranth and other foods like Moringa in their policy measures to curb malnutrition. Tanzania and its immediate neighbors in East Africa are striving to meet the long-term food sufficiency in both quantity and quality. Effective nutrition is when both quality and quantity of food are administered in adequate amounts regularly to achieve and maintain health status. One of the opportunities to be exploited, among others, is the grain amaranth cultivation. In fact, it has the potential to contribute to food security, nutrition, health, income generation, and therefore poverty alleviation. Amaranth grain has a characteristic of producing high yields even in relatively dry areas within a short period. Frequent droughts and often floods, poor farming methods, pestilences, and post-harvest losses, or any of their combinations, often precipitate crisis in the food supply chain. And in some neighboring nations, political upheaval, cause of displacement of populations from their land, like the case of Burundi. We have Congo, where people are displaced. So requests for donor-provided food aid to mitigate the ravages of famine, especially in the arid and semi-arid regions, often draw billions of dollars in responses across stakeholders. This situation is a cycle in nature, meaning a repeat is imminent every cropping cycle, and we shall spend more such billions. My desire, indeed, is to see a policy-led preemptive action by the same stakeholders, and in my assessment, spend millions of dollars to save ourselves from having to spend the billions and meet the humanitarian crisis. In 2015, more than 2.7 million Tanzanian children under 5 years of age were estimated to be stunted, and more than 600,000 others were suffering from acute malnutrition, of which 100,000 were severe cases. The prevalence of low body mass index among girls aged 15 to 19 years remained unchanged between 2010 and 2015. That's approximately 18%. Tanzania still stands at number 3 of the cases of children with stunted growth and malnutrition in sub-Saharan Africa. And unlike the first two, Congo, DRC, and Ethiopia, Tanzania is a peaceful nation. The other nations, there's war, and in the case of Ethiopia, it's mountainous, and then there's drought, occasional drought. So unlike the first two, Tanzanian case is different because we have a good climate in Tanzania, and most of the, what we would call arid in Tanzania is places where we can grow amaranth. And so we don't really have that arid land in Tanzania as we have in some of these other nations. Well, there are high rates of anemia among women, 45% overall, 57% of pregnant women, and 46% of breastfeeding mothers are anemic. This is from the UNICEF report on nutrition. Though malnutrition rates in Tanzania have decreased for children under 5 since 1999, it is still highly prevalent, and statistics are worrying high in some regions of the country. Regions like Iringa, Jombe, are I believe it's in those regions, because they are fertile regions. I believe it's more cultural, customary. The customs of the people there lead to this, because those are the regions where we get food from those regions, and so there's no better explanation why people are not feeding well. But as you all know, you eat what you eat because your mother taught you that this is food. And there's a lot of food that we don't eat because our mothers never taught us that that was food. So we end up not having our own menus in our houses. Nationally, chronic malnutrition or stunting affects 34.7% of children under the age of 5. Severe stunting affecting 11.5% of children nationwide. Stunting is irreversible, and we are talking of about 3 million children in just under 5. Their bigger brothers and sisters would replicate this trend every 5-year demographic across the entire population. The sad reality of this trend is it is genetically cyclic, threatening to permanently imprison this group in the other class. Tanzania is one of the most peaceful, stable, and prosperous countries in Africa. Despite growth averaging 6.5% and aspires to middle income status by 2025. That is from the Interagency Report Network. Notably, this could happen, leaving a significant portion of the demographic stranded. Amaranth does not belong to the grass family as other cereals do, but produces seeds which are grains and are classified into the family of pseudo-cereals, according to the National Academy of Sciences 1984 report. The agronomic importance of amaranth is that it is fast-growing plant, has tolerance to drought conditions, can grow in poor soils, and can be cultivated throughout the year. It has the capability of doing well when intercropped with other crops, a quality which makes it a potentially viable and adaptable to farmers and farms already allocated to other crops. You can see the amaranth crop. This one has not been intercropped. These features make amaranth an important crop that can be utilized in regions where conventional crops cannot grow, and there is less risk of crop failure with amaranth, according to Gupta, 1986. So it will naturally inherit large chunks of cheaper land. All the wastelands in Tanzania and the world, you can grow amaranth. You can even grow it on the roadside. Amaranth is a food plant, is relatively fast-growing, it is resistant to moisture stress, and produces good yields of grain of heads similar to those of sorghum. In Kilimanjaro, we have done amaranth. There are farmers of amaranth in Same, and the Same region is one of the drier parts of the Kilimanjaro region, and also in Siha on the Mount Kilimanjaro, the leeward side of Mount Kilimanjaro, and the crop in both places is doing well. So we can do amaranth even in places like Singida, Dodoma, and other seemingly drier parts of Tanzania. And we can harvest a lot of this amaranth grain. The principal parts of the amaranth plant are the roots, the stems, the leaves, and the seeds. Compared to other plant sources such as wheat and rice, amaranths are gluten-free, not like wheat, and contain 30% more protein with complete set of amino acids. It can improve the digestive system and reduce constipation due to high content of dietary fiber, which is 3 times that of wheat. It's a very rich grain. Its nutritional value is mainly due to its protein fraction. It has a high concentration of proteins with excellent nutritional quality. Products from animal sources such as eggs, milk, fish, and meat are the best sources of protein with high quality. However, they have a high cost and in some cases produce more allergies or intolerances. Plant proteins can be substituted for them either partially or completely. According to a study by Travano and others in 2008, Shekvami, 2014. The grain amaranth presents a high quality protein with an excellent amino acid balance, which is better than that of cereals and some legumes. The protein in amaranth grains, 13% to 19%, has high digestibility, about 90%. Proteins from amaranth are rich in lysine, ranging from 4.9 to 6.1 per gram protein, and limiting amino acid in other cereals. You would find that other cereals do not contain lysine. Minerals such as calcium, iron, magnesium, manganese, and vitamins of the B complex. It's very rich in minerals. And I believe these minerals and vitamins are the ones that cause amaranth to have healing properties. That if you give amaranth to a person with deficiencies, they'll come alive. They'll get back to health. And so elements like manganese, iron, copper, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and phosphorus necessary to maintain adequate electrolyte balance in the body. The presence of lysine, along with vitamin E, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, and vitamin C, helps to fight against free radicals. Vitamin C and vitamin E are some of the strongest antioxidants. So, and they are present in amaranth. And they are responsible for slowing aging and the formation of malignant cells, which helps in fighting against cancer. We have also given amaranth to all our patients who come to our clinic with cases of prostate cancer, and they recover well. The high calcium present in amaranth leaves is 2 times that of milk, and it's helpful to reduce risk of osteoporosis and other calcium deficiency. If you compare amaranth to milk, for instance, you find that milk is much more expensive compared to the amaranth seed, especially if the farmer grows the amaranth themselves. And so if you compare feeding the cow, the amaranth seed you just plant and it grows, and it can even grow, as we said earlier, even in drylands. So if I was asked to vote, I would vote for the amaranth vis-a-vis the milk. Amaranth contain dietary fiber in high proportion, which improves lipid metabolism. Dietary fiber is very important in our digestive system, and so once we encourage people to eat food with more fiber. Simply stated, processing of amaranth grain into diverse products to literally give it wings to richer demographics. We can produce many products from the amaranth, and with us, we have come with the products of amaranth, the amaranth flour, and as you can see, you can also pop amaranth grains, and they are very tasteful. It has been processed in combination with other grains to produce cold breakfast cereals. It is also being used for mixes that are used to prepare hot breakfast cereals and pancakes. In addition, there are breads, crackers, pastes. In our case, we have bread, we have tea scones, and we have also the amaranth flour and the popcorn. We can also make some cakes. We also have some cake that you use. You produce the amaranth flour plus wheat flour, and you make a wonderful product. And for those with diabetes, the amaranth bread is much better than the brown bread that we buy in the shops, because at least you are sure that amaranth has been put in the bread. Sometimes the brown bread, the bakers will just add color, and so nutritionally it will not help anybody with diabetes. But the amaranth seed is very good for people with diabetes. So there's a great opportunity for employing wheat amaranth mixtures in programs to improve the diet. The other main concept is to use locally grown non-wheat cereals or millets, which not only give value, but also provide the avenue for local taste. You can use amaranth also with what we call the ungalishe, and it's very good in the porridge. We have done it, like the case I said of the child in Manyara, in Haydom Hospital. We mixed amaranth flour with the sweet potato, the moringa, and the child came back. That child could have died. The mother was worried because of the reports she got from the doctors. There have been several workers have investigated new applications of amaranth seed in various food products, as it can act as a promising food crop on account of its nutritional qualities, and can be used to complement other cereals as an extender or as a supplement for adding nutritional value to foods. The amaranth grain, because of its high nutritional qualities, has various baking applications. Moreover, the nutritional composition of the grain, like the total protein, amino acid composition, mineral and vitamin composition, have been found to be comparable or even better than that of the common cereal grains. So if we supplement amaranth with the wheat or with other cereals, then you have a winning combination, and it blends well with the other cereals. This will enable promotion of the utilization of non-wheat cereals and their byproducts by the larger segment of the population. But we'll need to do a lot of teaching. Well, amaranth, in our summary, amaranth is profitable as an adaptable hardy plant, effective nutrient provider, and medicinal remedy. Unfortunately, in the market, this precious commodity, the price of a kilo of amaranth is 5,000 T shillings, and this is way above the other cereals. If you compare it to maize, a kilo of maize right now is going for about less than 500 shillings a kilo. So amaranth is still very expensive compared to the other cereals. But with teaching farmers, then the supply and demand, we can have a lot of amaranth, and that could bring the price down for all to afford. Not all of us can be farmers anyway. So if we can bring down the price, it would be utilized. The other thing is we need also to, I don't know whether is it to talk to the government so that the government can have a policy on the amaranth, because when they look at the nutritional component of amaranth, I believe it can gain status. Last year I went to the Agricultural Development Bank, and it's a government bank that lends money to farmers. And they were only interested in lending money for cash crops. They don't lend money for things like amaranth because they don't even understand amaranth. When you talk amaranth in Tanzania, many people look at the leaves of the amaranth. They do not know about the seed. And because the amaranth has been, the Tanzanian amaranth is associated with the low class. Not many people actually go to the benefits of amaranth. It's when you don't have food that you eat amaranth. When you don't have other vegetables, it's when you eat the amaranth. And like in Kilimanjaro, where I'm coming from, it's looked down upon as a food for the poor. And so we also need to change the people's mindset. We need to tell the people that amaranth is a great crop and it's good for your nutrition. So we've had radio programs in the radio, and we would, in our summary, we would recommend to have radio programs which can offer a platform that can be further developed, and this calls for support, especially financially. The radio's programs are expensive, but this can reach more and more farmers. And I don't know whether the government can chip in on this. I know there are times when the government, if it was the case for coffee, like in Kilimanjaro right now, they are coming back, or they want coffee to come back. They want people to plant more coffee. So they have a big campaign on coffee. But we also need to talk to the industry. The industry can also be meaningful. I said we have some amaranth products. We have some bread and stuff like that. And this bread has been baked by a small bakery in Moshi town. And we have talked with them so that they can include amaranth in their bread. And they have the small 500 grams bread that they target students. And this way, the students will know that this bread has amaranth and that it is going to help them in their health. So we also need to talk to the industry and come up with ways of publicizing the amaranth grain so that more and more people join in the amaranth chain. So I think we are done. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless you all. I hope I hope the other organizations like World Vision, I know you do a lot of work on sweet potatoes and other crops. I hope you take up Amaranth also. Thank you very much.
All right, wonderful presentation, right? Yeah, so many things learned. I'm going to be having that for dinner today. Any questions? Any questions we can take? Maybe you might sit down, take notes. So we can entertain 5 questions. Then John will be able to provide feedback. So take.
Will there be a presentation to show that where we can buy supplies with the tiny mesh and to preserve it and the best ways of storing it, so that we're in Ebencho, Kenya, very close to Lake Victoria, and it's damp there in the mountains. What is the best way to preserve it, to keep our grain?
My question is on you have presented the amaranth with that good nutritive value, which can help to reduce malnutrition. Now my question is, do you recommend all varieties of amaranth, or do you have a specific variety? Because I understand the nutritive value should not be the same for all varieties of amaranth.
Thank you very much for the questions. I'll start off with Bernard. Yes, we have had problems with the pastoralists. And one example is when we were teaching the orange fresh sweet potatoes at a place called Msitu wa Tembo, right on the banks of the Ruvu River. And we planted seeds. We were doing seed multiplication and for the village. And the Maasais came when the seeds were just about. They brought in their cows and they feasted on the seeds. And our watchman could not do much because when the Maasais, you know how the Maasais, when they come, so he had to just give in. And all the 2 acres were gone. So there's a problem with the pastoralists, but we need to change their mindset. And I know it's not easy, but this is something that can be done. We have started doing it on moringa, and some of them have seen the effects of moringa on their animals. So we believe it's something that can be done, although it's not easy, but we continue. The other question was from Mr. Kuhanda. He asked whether we get the same qualities with all the amaranths. And and then the effect of the quality of the seeds if we harvest the leaves. Now, the good thing with amaranth is when you plant, when you plant the seeds, because they are so tiny and there are so many, then you'll need to remove some of the crop to leave the ones that you leave for the seeds. So once you start planting, you'll have something for your leaves as you go along. But the ones that you earmark for seed production, you just leave them to grow. But I believe somebody is going to come to talk about the agricultural aspect. I was more on the nutrition. And as our friend from Alfred John raised a concern about the disease approach. And yes, we are a herbal, and so our approach is actually disease. But you can also not, there's not much line of difference between nutrition and disease eradication. In fact, it is a mistake that we have always done. With the proper nutrition, even for our crops, if there's proper nutrition, the crops will not be attacked even by insects. And let me give you an example. When a lion goes after its victims, it will always select the weaker, the seemingly weaker. And that is for everything else, including the insect pests. They'll not immediately attack a good crop. They'll look for the weaker crops. And so even for the human beings, when you are okay nutritionally, you've eaten good food, you've eaten balanced food, the bacteria will not attack you. They'll come and your immune system will fight them off. So to me, there's not much difference. And then it is also even more appealing to the people because these diseases now are rampant. When you tell somebody that if you take amaranth, it will help your diabetes, it will keep you away from cancer, that in itself is enough advertising. They'll be attracted to it because it is giving them benefit. And one other thing is we are never taught what the food that we are eating, we are never taught what we are going to get from that food. And that way, we are not, our food choices, we are not able to select our food properly. And that is also one cause of the diseases and the illnesses and the sicknesses. Yes. If we are taught that if you eat a tomato, it will give you this. If you eat the amaranth seed, it will do this in your body. I believe we'll be more healthy. There was also a question by, he asked whether we recommend all varieties. And I would say all varieties of amaranth, including the traditional African ones, should not get lost. We should preserve them. They are all good and they are all nutritious. Although now for the seeds, I would recommend the grain amaranth seeds. And we have seeds, and we have come with seeds. For those who do not know the seeds, we have come with some sample seeds. You can purchase your pack. And then there was somebody who asked about, somebody said, oh, our sister, the seeds are so tiny. How do we preserve them? I believe somebody is going to come and talk about these things, the agriculture and Is that so? There's another presentation on Amaranth. Yes. So I think those areas will be covered in the other presentations. Thank you very much.